Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. All right, it is Friday. Welcome in. Glad to have you spend a few minutes of your day with me. We got a lot to cover today. Those who leaked the preliminary assessment, rejected by the White House, of course, on the U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities will face justice for sharing the document, according to the Trump White House. We have the full details on that. A bill to deport illegal immigrants convicted of driving while under the influence was opposed by 160 House Democrats. So they are okay with a bunch of drunk illegals here. This was still passed and forwarded to the Senate for their approval. The new president of the International Olympic Committee is calling for protections of women's sports, which sounds good on the surface, I guess, but there still seems to be some question on how exactly to do that. Shouldn't be that hard. We'll dive into that today. And in a major ruling yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court gave South Carolina the green light to remove Planned Parenthood from its list of Medicaid providers, a decision that could have a ripple effect across the nation.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Let's get straight to the heart of one of the most serious national security breaches that we've seen in a number of years. Quick reminder, of course, quick summary. Last weekend, President Donald Trump authorized airstrikes on 3 of Iran's most critical nuclear sites, 14 30,000 bombs, precision, power, and now they're gone. Completely destroyed. Obliterated, I think, is the word that President Trump used and is being pushed back on. The damage, catastrophic. Iran says so. Israel says so. Our own generals say so. But just when the dust was settling, here comes CNN, the New York Times, dropping a so-called leaked intelligence report claiming the strikes only set Iran back a few months. Really? A few months. Okay. That's their spin. Well, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt did not hold back yesterday. She said that the assessment was flat out wrong, that just a portion of the intel was leaked, that's typical of how they do this, illegally, by the way, and that the FBI is investigating.
This was a low-confidence, preliminary intelligence assessment, and the entirety of that assessment was not leaked to the media. Only tidbits of that assessment were leaked to CNN. And we have seen this playbook run before, where you have people in the intelligence community or perhaps on Capitol Hill, we don't know, but I believe the FBI is investigating to find out who that leaker was because it's illegal and they should be held accountable for that. Leaked bits and pieces of an intel assessment to push a false narrative.
Don't you just love her? I mean, she just gets right to the point. And by the way, I think they're taking this seriously. I do believe Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, in his press conference yesterday, he too confirmed that there was an ongoing investigation and that they're going to find who leaked this and they're going to prosecute the person. General Dan Kane, in a briefing also yesterday, supported the press secretary, saying that all 3 sites were left in ruins, saying that Iran's foreign ministry admitted that its facilities were badly damaged. Even Israel called the strikes devastating. So if everyone involved agrees that the damage was enormous, who exactly is pushing this minimal impact narrative? Well, we all know the answer. The same swamp creatures who can't stand that Trump succeeded where they failed. We talked about this some yesterday. They just cannot stand the idea. As Americans, they should be proud of our military. But in this case, because Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief, they can't bring themselves to be proud. They're not just undermining the president, they're undermining national security. This wasn't a press leak, it was sabotage. That assessment was classified, and only a few people had access to it. I got a feeling they're going to be able to find who did this, because this wasn't about transparency. It was a hit job, and it's not the first time. Trump wasn't quiet about it either. Did you hear him call out CNN's Natasha Bertrand? He called her by name, said that she should be reprimanded and thrown out like a dog. Honestly, he's not wrong. These aren't whistleblowers. These are people who think they run the government and not President Trump and not the voters who put him in office. CNN's response? We stand 100% behind her journalism, referencing Miss Bertrand, of course. Yeah, of course they do. The same way that they stood behind the Russia hoax, the Ukraine phone call nonsense, and every fake scandal that they could dream up since President Trump came down that golden escalator. And again, you gotta love her. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt also called Bertrand out in her press briefing late afternoon yesterday, giving a history of her bad reporting during the White House press briefing yesterday in front of the entire world.
And it's to the same reporter, I will add, Natasha Bertrand of CNN, who has done this in the past. In 2020, it was Natasha Bertrand who had 51 intelligence analysts falsely lie to her, but she still put it on paper for some reason, that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. We all know that's not true, right? We can all agree on that now. That was a lie from the intelligence community. Also in 2020, this same reporter, Natasha Bertrand, wrote that a top intel agency ruled out the man-made lab leak theory of the coronavirus origins. Again, the president was right about that. This reporter wrote a lie from the intelligence community to seek a narrative she wanted to prove, and guess what? We now know that's the truth. Also, in 2024, Bertrand pushed the suckers and losers hoax. She also pushed the fine people hoax, which was taking the president's words purposely out of context. And then last October, and I believe this is notable, Natasha Bertrand published an article in Politico from the intelligence agency. She said that John Ratcliffe was speaking without any evidence when he said Iran was attempting to undermine President Trump's presidential campaign. And then we, of course, found out that was absolutely true. In fact, the Biden administration declassed an intel report which said they had high confidence that Iran had done exactly what Ratcliffe alleged. They did run an influence campaign to hurt President Trump's candidacy. In fact, we know the Iranians tried to take President Trump's life. And so this is a reporter who has been unfortunately used by people who dislike Donald Trump in this government to push fake and false narratives. She should be ashamed of herself. And that's not what reporting is. Journalism is trying to find the facts and the truth. And this week, we saw this same reporter being used to push a fake narrative to try to undermine the President of the United States, and more importantly, the brave fighter pilots who conducted one of the most successful operations in United States history. And I think the American people fully know that this operation was a complete and total success.
Yes, the American people do know that, and the American people are proud of that. Didn't you just love how Caroline Leavitt said that Ms. Bertrand should be ashamed of herself? She should be ashamed of herself, and CNN should be ashamed of her reporting as well. But no, they're not. Again, their hatred of Donald Trump outweighs all of that. So let's talk about what's really going on here. President Trump did not just bomb some empty buildings. He cratered the heart of Iran's nuclear program, and in doing that, he shattered the illusion that war in the Middle East has to be endless and ineffective. That's just a narrative that no one has, until President Trump, has stood up and said, look, there can be peace in the Middle East. We don't have to settle for less. He showed the world what real strength looks like. Fast, surgical, and effective. No warnings, no apologies, just went in, got it done, got results. And the deep state, they can't stand it. Because what Trump did worked. It clearly did. Then the think tanks, the diplomats, the Obama holdovers, all the so-called experts, they've been exposed as useless. So now they're leaking fake damage assessments. They're trying to muddy the waters. They're trying to downplay the victory. This is about power and about who controls the truth. And Donald Trump. He's taking that power back and returning it to the American people. The deep state can't stand it. That's what this leak is about. It wasn't just someone being careless. It was a calculated move to try to discredit the commander-in-chief, to gaslight the public, and to lay the groundwork for the next big lie. You don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't think America believes it. Joey Hudson here. America is facing a health crisis, and the answer isn't more meds. I lost over 30 pounds on the PhD weight loss plan without Ozempic or any weight loss shots. Don't settle for a lifetime of medication. GLP-1 injections like Ozempic help some people lose weight, but they come with side effects, high cost, and most gain it back when they stop. At PhD Weight Loss, we reveal Big Pharma's big secret. Your body already makes GLP-1, the appetite-fighting hormone. Our program helps your body make it naturally so you'll drop the pounds faster. With the PhD method, no side effects, no long-term risk, no rebound weight gain, just natural, lasting results, all without hunger or cravings. Right now, get a free body scan and personalized metabolic assessment. Discover your body's true potential without a shot. It's free and gives you the keys to your personalized plan. Do like I did and don't trade your health for a quick fix. Call now at 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com. You know, one of the things about this past week, there's been so much talk, of course, about Iran and our strikes on them and what the results could have been. The media, that they've been consumed with it. And to a degree, you and I have been consumed with it. And it kind of took the spotlight off temporarily of the ongoing issue we have, of course, with illegal immigrants. But the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate, they're quietly moving along with legislation that's part of America First, part of President Trump's overall program to secure our borders and to remove people who are in our country who should not be here, especially those criminals. Did you happen to hear about the House vote this week? It was a bill to deport illegal immigrants who have been convicted of driving under the influence. Now, you would think that everybody would be in favor of this. I don't care who you are. If you're here, number one, illegally. Number two, you've broken our laws by driving while you're intoxicated. And in some of the cases, some of the cases that were used as examples, you literally killed Americans while here illegally and while here driving under the influence. So you would think that this would be a slam dunk. There wouldn't be any debate, no questions. Well, not so. The bill was introduced by Representative Barry Moore. He's a Republican from Alabama. It did pass the House, 246 to 160. So that means 160 Democrats voted no. And they were all Democrats. Democrats who voted for the legislation. And there were a few, 37. Included Representative Jim Himes from Connecticut, the top Democrat on the House Permanent Select Committee, as well as moderate representatives Tom Suzy, Jared Golden, Laura Gillen, Don Davis, who's from just up the road from me in North Carolina, and others. Representative Moore said, today's vote in the House sends a clear message. If you're a guest in this country and you break our laws and put American lives at risk by driving under the influence, there will be consequences. The bill is named after Jeremy and Angel Say, a couple from Mr. Moore's own community who were killed by an illegal immigrant who was found to have been drunk while driving. It also is named after Saline, Arizona police officer Brandon Mendoza, who also was killed by an illegal immigrant found to have been driving under the influence. So again, you would think that this would be an easy piece of legislation, that there would be no opposition from either party. Not the case. Democrats who opposed the bill argued that it was an attempt to fearmonger. Representative Mary Gay Scanlon, she's a Democrat from Pennsylvania, said when the House Rules Committee debated the bill earlier this week, here's her quote, "I participated in the judiciary hearings that led to this bill being sent to the floor, and I carefully reviewed the majority report. There's absolutely no evidence in that hearing or report showing a causal connection between immigration status and drunk driving." She said, and most notably, for all this talk, this legislation takes no real meaningful action to repair our broken immigration system. Again, put the immigration system aside because it is broken. Who could argue against a bill that says that if you're in our country illegally, you drive while you're drunk, we're going to send you home. We're not going to allow you another opportunity to kill an American. Who can oppose that? Moore said that he was amazed, Representative Moore, the sponsor of the bill, he said he was amazed that 160 Democrats voted against the bill. So am I. So am I. He said in a floor speech, it just shows that if it comes to anything about holding illegal immigrants accountable, even if it's killing our own people in drunk driving cases, they're against any kind of reforms on immigration. House Democrats' senior leadership are among the 160 who voted against the bill, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Help me understand this. Help me understand how 160 Americans, forget about party affiliation, 160 men and women who have been sent to the U.S. House of Representatives, how they could be opposed to sending people who are in our country illegally, and they have also broken the law by driving under the influence, in some cases have killed Americans, and they don't want to send them home. It's just unimaginable. Unimaginable. And by the way, while we're talking about illegals, at least 3 individuals were arrested after a violent riot outside of an Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Portland, Oregon. It escalated into what authorities are calling a targeted attack involving knives, fireworks, and explosives. According to the Department of Homeland Security, one assailant attempted to launch a Roman candle firework directly at federal agents. Then he swung a large knife at officers before hurling at them, just throwing it at them. The agency released a photo of the weapon allegedly used, and it is a big knife. Fortunately, no federal officers were seriously injured. This happened June 18th, though DHS confirmed that 4 were hurt during an earlier June 14th incident at the same facility in Portland, Oregon. Look, Oregon allows these things to happen. Portland, Oregon specifically. A DHS spokesperson said, unfortunately, these violent attacks are becoming more and more common. Our ICE law enforcement is now facing a 500% increase in assaults while carrying out enforcement operations. Talk about heroes. These ICE agents who have targets on their backs now because of the Democrats and because of the left. It's amazing that these men and women get up every day, put on their uniforms, and go do their job. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem issued a strong warning saying, "You will not stop us or slow us down. If you lay a hand on law enforcement officers, you will be fully prosecuted by the law," as they should be. Photos and videos circulating online show federal agents tackling suspects, arresting multiple individuals as literally chaos unfolded outside of this Portland facility. You'd have thought it was a war zone. You can go online and watch the video. It's horrible of what these people are doing, all in the name of resisting the deportation of illegals. Again, I get kind of worked up about this because I just can't imagine Americans wanting to defend illegal immigrants. If you can understand the lunacy, text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. Before we move on from the topic of illegals, and I know we talk about it a lot, because it's a major issue. And it's not just about those from South America. And this was something it took me a while to completely comprehend and understand. Because typically when we think about our southern border, we think about people from South America, from Mexico, from Brazil, and all those South American, Nicaragua, coming across that southern hemisphere and into our southern border. But President Trump has for a long, long time told us, hey, it's not just people from Mexico coming into our country illegally. It's people from all over the world. China, Russia, yes, Iran. And to highlight that, a story this week out of Texas, a previously deported Iranian man who was living in our United States illegally was arrested this week by federal prosecutors. His name, Jamil Bahali, was found at an Austin, Texas home where deportation officers attempted to arrest him as part of a 2020 removal order after he skipped out on an appointment in an immigration office. This according to the Justice Department. Now, think about that for just a minute. Key part of that sentence, after he skipped out on an appointment at an immigration office. Now, how many times over the last 4 years did we hear Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, talking about having our open borders, talking about how they were effectively processing these people and setting up appointments with immigration judges? And for some reason, the Biden administration was so naive, or at least they pretended to be. They thought, well, we're going to process these people. We're going to set up an appointment with them for a judge. They're going to show back up. And they never do. They don't. And that's how we have millions of people in our country illegally, because they came in, they claimed asylum. They used one of the apps that the Biden administration set up, walked into our country. They were given a date knowing they were never going to show back up for that date. And that's the case here of Mr. Jamil Bahali from Iran. When authorities found him in the doorway of his home in Austin, Texas, he refused to be arrested and took an action designed to prevent or hamper his deportation and departure pursuant to the outstanding final order of removal by slamming the door on the deportation officers. This according to court documents. As if they were just going to go away. This idiot, I guess, thought, well, I'm just going to slam the door in their faces. They won't do anything. They'll leave me alone. Well, he learned about the American way. He's charged with failure to deport. Bahali now here's the interesting thing. He self-deported to Canada in 2021, in October 2021, following the removal order. However, this is what happens so often. He came back. He re-entered the U.S. illegally and was found December 15, 2023 by authorities. The 2020 removal order used to deport him the first time was then reinstated. He was then charged with illegal re-entry and information with illegal entry for which he was convicted in Montana on January 5th of 2024. All this according to court documents. He was sentenced to time served and released into the U.S. and was scheduled to report to an office in San Antonio in January of 2024, never showed up. Now think about that too. So during the Biden administration, he was found guilty, convicted, and turned loose. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This is how the Biden administration was. First of all, it was wrong. Secondly, we had someone that we know nothing about, an Iranian in this country, whom we know could be dangerous. And to top it all off, the Biden-Harris administration, they're pretending that these people have due process. They're pretending to go through the process, give them court dates, have the hearings, convict them, and they think they're going to show back up. This time he faces up to 4 years in prison. ICE says that they're investigating the case further. What investigation needs to be done? And why are we concerned about sending him to prison for 4 years? Send him back home once and for all. Or send him to El Salvador, where we know they'll keep him in prison down there. All right, I'm done on immigration right now. A lot of text messages coming in. Faye says on the text message, on the text line, do we need to put these lefties behind a wall in California? And the Dem candidate for New York mayor really makes me upset. Thanks, Joey, for your great show every day. Look, this New York candidate, we talked about it a good bit yesterday. I don't know what New York's thinking. This is not going to have a good ending. But you know what? I think it's good for us. I think it improved our midterm election prospects 1,000%. Yes, it's crazy, and I'm sorry for New Yorkers who are going to have to put up with this, but I think his election just won us the midterms. Tony writes, Joey, let's see. Oh, okay. I'll be voting for a non-corporate candidate like Alan Wilson. We're talking about the governor's race in South Carolina next year, as it kind of kicked off this past week with Alan Wilson, Attorney General, announcing, State Senator Josh Kimbrell announcing. I got a notice from Senator Kimbrell where he is having the official launch of his campaign this weekend. Back to Tony's text. He says, I watched friends with small businesses close their door because Henry Disaster and Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott did not give small business their COVID funds. Tony, I'd love to know more about that. Email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. I'd love to know what your take is on this. And by the way, I'll ask the governor. I'll ask the lieutenant governor. Ray writes, help, Joey. Why does the Senate parliamentarian have the power to change legislation? She was not elected. And why has the Senate made the rule that other than a reconciliation bill, it takes 60 votes to pass a bill? Is this part of the Constitution? Why cannot the Senate change these rules and go back to the majority party passing legislation with 51 votes? Well, Ray, they could change the rules, but do we really want them to? Because this 60-vote rule protects us too. It protected us during the Biden administration and the Democrats when they had control of the Senate. Yeah, it's a little bit tougher, and that's why we have to work harder next year during the midterms, elect a bigger majority in the Senate so we don't have to depend on so many Democrats to get legislation passed. I understand what you're saying, Ray, but I think we probably need to leave that 60 vote threshold where it is. And by the way, your question about the Senate parliamentarian, the parliamentarian has no power other than what the Senate itself gives the parliamentarian. They voted for these rules. The parliamentarian just enforces and interprets the rules. Hope that explains or answers your question, Ray. By the way, news out of the International Olympic Committee. The new president, Kirsty Coventry is her name, addressed the topic of transgender athletes this week competing in women's sports. This was her first official news conference since she took over, and she said that there is overwhelming support by IOC members to protect the female category. Well, yeah, there is overwhelming support. In her statement, Coventry said, we understand that there'll be there are differences depending on the sport, but it was very clear from the members that we have to protect the female category first and foremost to ensure fairness. Well, I'm glad we all agree on that. Now, here's the interesting part, though. She agrees that we need to protect women's sports. She's not quite sure how to do it, though. She was very cautious from there, saying that they needed to she mumbled something about the science, that we needed to study the science. We know what the science says. It's real simple. They're men and they're women. They're boys and they're girls. Males, females. That's how God made us. So there's no studying that needs to be done. If you truly want to protect women's sports, then, Madam President, you need to be bold. You need to be courageous. Take a page out of Donald Trump's book and just flat out say, if you were born a male, you cannot compete in female sports. End of sentence. Full stop. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. We wrap up another week. Thanks for spending part of your Friday with me. I kind of got on a roll the other day about Planned Parenthood. I think maybe Wednesday or so, and not realizing the news we were going to get yesterday from the U.S. Supreme Court. In a major ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court gave South Carolina the green light to remove Planned Parenthood from its list of Medicaid providers. Now, this is a decision that could have ripple effects across the nation. It was a 6-3 decision. The court found that Medicaid patients do not have a federal right to sue states over their choice of health care providers. This decision allows South Carolina to enforce a 2018 executive order signed by Governor Henry McMaster, which banned Medicaid funds from going to clinics associated with abortion services, even for non-abortion care, like cancer screenings, birth control, and STI treatment. Because if you send money to Planned Parenthood, you're supporting abortions, even though they may be providing other care. So here's the core legal issue here. The ruling doesn't center directly on abortion. Instead, it addresses whether patients have the legal standing to challenge state decisions about which providers are eligible for Medicaid reimbursement. Planned Parenthood argued that Medicaid's language giving patients the ability to obtain care from, quote, qualified providers implied a legal right to choose their provider. The court disagreed, said no. Justice Neil Gorsuch, writing for the majority, said that the law does not create a private right to sue, noting that Congress did not explicitly grant that right. Justice Clarence Thomas joined the majority and wrote a separate concurring opinion. Now, on the opposing side, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, as you can imagine, no surprise there, joined the court's two other liberal justices and issued a very sharp dissent. She argued that the majority's interpretation undermines long-standing civil rights protections and deprives vulnerable Medicaid recipients of meaningful legal recourse. She wrote in her opinion, this decision will strip South Carolinians and countless other Medicaid recipients around the country of a deeply personal freedom, the ability to decide who treats us at our most vulnerable. Now, she, of course, was one of the dissenting justices in overturning Roe v. Wade. She would have never thinks that there is not an option for abortion. She thinks that's a right. And by supporting or dissenting in this opinion and supporting the fact that people should be able to choose their providers and that they have a right to, then she would be forcing states like South Carolina and Governor McMaster, who signed the executive order, basically saying, we're not going to use this money for abortions, period. The state was sued, of course, and in a great decision yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court fell on the side of common sense. So what's next? Well, Planned Parenthood will continue serving Medicaid patients, they say, until a lower court formally clears South Carolina to enforce the policy. That probably won't take long. Still, the ruling sets a precedent that may encourage other conservative states to follow South Carolina's leads. We could see other conservative states doing the same thing now that they have this precedent. South Carolina Medicaid data shows that Planned Parenthood receives only a tiny fraction, about 0.2% of Medicaid dollars for family planning services, which is about $88,000 of their $35 million budget in 2022-2023. Still, any money at all, regardless of how small it is, what small percentage of their overall budget it is, no state money should go to support abortions, period, or an organization whom we know would put that money to support abortions. Governor Henry McMaster celebrated the ruling. He called it a victory for South Carolina's pro-life policies and state sovereignty. His authority, basically. That he has the authority, that the courts basically said that the governor has the authority to ban the use of that money. Attorney General Alan Wilson said the decision ensures that D.C. activist groups can't override South Carolina's Medicaid decisions. Of course, the Attorney General was part of the lawsuit, and he announced this week he's running for governor. Republican lawmakers, including Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey, called the ruling a blow to Planned Parenthood and a win for pro-life. And it is. It's a huge win for pro-life. It's a huge win for South Carolina. And for once, South Carolina appears to be leading the way, because I've got to believe we will, in fact, see other states follow. Now that they know the court will support that, I think we're going to very quickly see other states do the same thing. You're going to have other governors signing very similar executive orders, knowing that they can be that they can stand up to a test in the courts. Democrat senators, on the other hand, and Planned Parenthood, of course, warn that the decision will hurt low-income women, especially in the underserved black communities. Planned Parenthood, again, vowing to keep serving Medicaid patients until a new court order allows state to enforce the ruling. Again, I think we can see that pretty quickly. Now, the decision is not about abortion coverage directly. It's about whether patients can sue to defend their choice of providers under Medicaid. The court said no, handing a win to states seeking to restrict Medicaid funding from clinics associated with abortion. And it's not just about Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood just happens to be the leader of the pack. Planned Parenthood is the biggest one who has these services. Again, huge win for life, huge defeat for Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers. And this is just another example. Let us not forget that had Donald Trump not been in the White House for 4 years in his first term and appointed conservative judges to the U.S. Supreme Court, we would not have these types of decisions being handed down. We can thank Donald Trump for that decision. People in South Carolina and other states who will follow suit can thank Donald Trump for this huge win for the pro-life movement. Just another example of the fact that elections do have consequences. That's it for today's show. Tara's up next, followed by Mike Gallagher, Bill Frady, Charlie James, Mark Levin. We're back on Monday for more Sunrise Carolina and that first cup of coffee. Until then, have a great weekend. And remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.